Contemporary Topics 3, Advanced Academic Listening and Note-Taking Skills, 3rd edition, by David Beglar and Neil Murray. Series Editor, Michael Rost. Copyright 2009 Pearson Education Incorporated. All rights reserved. The use of this audio program for the purpose of copying, transforming, or adapting in any manner, in whole or in part, is strictly prohibited without prior consent of Pearson Education. CD2. Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory, page 43. Build your vocabulary. 1.
Brain chemicals can make people feel very excited or very sad. These natural substances have an extremely strong influence on our feelings.
2.
Many of our memories, such as the facts and ideas that we learn in school, are conscious. We can recall them and explain them to others.
3.
In the past decade, researchers have learned many new things about how memory works, and even more progress is expected in the next 10 years.
4.
Some of our knowledge about how to do things, such as riding a bicycle, is mostly implicit. We can ride the bicycle, but it's very difficult to tell another person how to do it.
5.
We often think about logical relationships when studying something. For instance, what is the reasonable cause of something, or what will be the likely result of some event?
6.
When we do mathematics, we manipulate information in one part of our memory system by adding, subtracting, or changing the numbers.
7.
Some psychologists have studied the types of memory we have and how to improve memory. Thanks to this specialized study of the mind, we now know much more about memory than we did a generation ago.
8.
When we feel strong emotions, our brains release substances. These substances go to specific parts of our brain and help us remember that event.
9.
The most important function of our memory system is that it can retain information for long periods of time. Because of this, we can remember events that happened many years ago.
10.
Some memories are stored only temporarily. They can be recalled very briefly, and then they fade away.
Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory, page 45. Try it out.
Some people who study or work hard drink coffee or tea because these drinks contain caffeine, and caffeine causes them to feel more energetic. And, as you would imagine, more energy allows them to study or work longer. However, did you know that caffeine may also affect memory? Researchers have found that one interesting effect of caffeine is to cause new brain cells to grow. The idea, of course, is that more brain cells might result in better memory. Actually, most researchers think that the main reason that caffeine may have a positive effect on memory is the first idea I mentioned, that caffeine gives us more energy. And more energy makes us more alert. And being more alert causes us to notice and remember more information. That seems reasonable, right?
Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory, pages 46 and 47. Listen for main ideas and listen for details.
As part of our study of the brain's various functions, we're going to look at the topic of memory. And this is a fascinating topic, really. Now, who remembers what they ate for lunch last Monday? I remember having pizza. That's memory at work. A simple definition of memory is the ability to store, retain, and recall the information. That sounds simple, but if you think about it, in many ways, we are our memories. And when we think about who we are, we probably think about the events we've experienced, the people we've known, as well as the opinions and the feelings we have about a great many things. All of this information is stored in a variety of brain systems that handle the different types of memory. So first, let's look at 3 types of memory that have been identified by psychologists, and then I'll talk about how we can improve our memories. The first type of memory is sensory memory. Sensory memory is extremely short, generally lasts about 100 to 500 milliseconds. Now, as the name suggests, sensory memory concerns the initial moment that we perceive something with our senses. Now, for instance, consider tactile sensory memory. If you touch a piece of silk, the memory of the smoothness of the silk will continue after you take your hand away. That's sensory memory at work. Now, it's important for learning and remembering because using more senses means we've recorded the experience in more ways in our brain. The next type of memory is working memory, which is extremely important in everyday life. Working memory is a system where we temporarily hold and manipulate information. You think of it as a temporary workspace in your mind. For instance, if your friend tells you a phone number and you don't have a pen, you probably repeat the number several times in your mind so that you remember it. In that case, you're using working memory. Now, it's absolutely crucial for performing common mental operations like adding numbers, following directions, and understanding logical relationships between ideas. And finally, there's what's called long-term memory, which is memory that's stored for as little as 30 seconds to as long as your entire lifetime. Now, psychologists believe that most long-term memories are information and experiences that were initially processed in working memory, in meaningful and perhaps in emotional ways. For instance, I clearly remember the first time I saw the Grand Canyon. I was only 15 years old, but the size just amazed and impressed me so much that even decades later, it's still very clear in my mind. Now, there are 2 subtypes of long-term memory. There's declarative memory and procedural memory. Declarative memory is all of the facts and ideas and names that are consciously available to you. All of your experiences and conscious memories fall into this category. Procedural memory concerns your knowledge of moving your body, like when you ride a bicycle or you play a musical instrument. Most of our procedural memories are implicit and unconscious. Okay, now I'm going to test your memory with this question. Does anyone remember what I said I'd talk about next? How to improve your memory, right? When we think about improving our memory, we're generally talking about improving our declarative memory, the one that stores the facts and the names and so on. All right? This type of memory can be improved if we use certain strategies. So I want to talk about 2 types of memory strategies that are useful in school: cognitive strategies and affective strategies. Now, cognitive strategies tell us how to approach tasks and which methods to use to complete them. So basically, they're concerned with thinking in more effective ways. Okay, let's take a quick look at one cognitive strategy. This one's called verbal elaboration. Now, verbal elaboration occurs when we talk in a meaningful way about information that we are trying to remember. And that means that as you study, you should think about and verbalize information critically. You can use this strategy by agreeing or disagreeing with the information, or by comparing and contrasting the information to ideas you already know, or by discussing relationships between ideas. When we make meaningful relationships between what we already know and what we're trying to learn, we'll remember more and we'll remember it longer. Now, for the other approach, affective strategies. Affective strategies help us control our emotional responses so that we remember better. But what do emotions have to do with memories? Well, emotions cause the release of brain chemicals that play a direct role in memory formation. And part of the emotion system in the brain, called the limbic system, helps transfer information into long-term memory. In other words, how you feel about something affects how well you remember it. So, What affective strategies can you use to create positive emotional responses while studying? First, study with 1 or 2 friends from class. This can make any study session more interesting, more enjoyable. Second, use interesting study tasks, like taking turns making short presentations on a topic that you're studying, or come up with questions to test each other on the information. See, the point of trying the affective strategy is that it will increase not only your memory, but also your sense of fun and challenge and interest. And you can do this for any subject. Now, are there any questions?
Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory, page 48. Talk about the topic, parts A and B.
So why don't we start by going over some of the memorization strategies? So, guys, does anyone think that any of these memorization strategies actually work? Like, do any of you actually practice any of them?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I use a cognitive one. What did he call it? Verbal.
Oh, I have that here. Verbal elaboration.
That's it. I have used it in my art history class. After class, I have a little conversation with myself, think about what I like and don't like, and why. It's really helped me feel more familiar with the material.
Well, isn't that kind of common sense? I mean, duh, think about what you've read and heard, don't just memorize it.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of different from me. I grew up learning everything via memorization.
Really?
Just memorizing it, which is a good approach with some things.
What about the effective strategy that he mentioned? Like, do any of you think that you can actually change your feelings about a subject?
That's a tough one. Like, I'm taking this philosophy class now. I just can't get into it. The professor is so dry.
This might help. Last semester, this guy I sat next to in statistics, we started meeting every Sunday at Cafe Roma to study, and we'd have questions prepared for each other and stuff, and it totally helped me survive that class.
Oh, so you're saying it's smart to first think about who you're gonna sit by in class?
Exactly.
No. Okay, that is
Now we see the
inferring
truth.
something.
Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory. Take the unit test. Listen to each question. Circle the letter of the correct answer. 1.
What are the 2 main points of the lecture?
2.
Which of the following topics does the speaker not discuss?
3.
Where are memories stored?
4.
What is the correct order of memory systems, from shortest to longest?
5.
Improving memory primarily concerns which type of memory?
6.
Which of the following was not mentioned as an example of verbal elaboration?
7.
How is the limbic system related to memory formation?
8.
Which of the following is probably true about memory?
9.
A study group creates quiz questions for each other. Which are they using?
10.
What is the speaker's attitude toward using memory strategies?
Unit 5, Cognitive Psychology, Memory, page 50. Extend the topic, Part A.
Thanks for being here today, Aisha. So tell our listeners, what exactly is meant by the future of memory?
Well, first it means that our understanding of memory is changing. Memory is now seen as extending beyond our mind. Obviously, our memories exist in our minds, but they also exist in our environment.
Like when I write something down on a piece of paper?
Yes, that's a good example. But an even better example might be computers or technology in general. And that brings us to the second point about the future of memory. Technology is changing our conception of memory.
Could you give an example of that?
Sure, just look at computers. Huge amounts of information can be kept on these devices, right? For instance, we can have the names and email addresses of thousands of people with us at all times.
So you're saying the information on the computer would be considered part of our memory?
Yes, exactly. It's an extension of our biological memory. And future technology will have an even stronger impact on us. For example, in the future, we'll wear eyeglasses that have automatic face recognition. If you see someone you met several years ago, the eyeglasses will show you the results of a database search. If the face is identified, then the person's name will be shown on the inside of the glasses.
That's amazing. So the future of memory is an increasingly seamless integration between memories in our brain and information available on high-tech devices.
Right. And seamless is the key word there.
Unit 6, Anthropology, Biology, The Science of Love, page 53. Build your vocabulary. 1.
Anthropologists. Anthropologists study people, their societies, and their beliefs.
2.
Attachment. Having an attachment to someone or something means that you feel strong loyalty, love, or friendship toward that person or thing.
3.
Characteristic. A special quality or feature that someone or something has.
4.
Emotion. An emotion is a strong human feeling such as love or hate.
5.
Enhance. If you enhance something, you make it better.
6.
Hormone. A hormone is a substance in our body that influences our growth, development, and health.
7.
Invoke. If something invokes a feeling, it causes that feeling to happen.
8.
Mutual. This is a feeling or action that is felt or done by two or more people toward one another.
9.
Perspective. Perspective means that a person is likely to do a particular thing or that the event is likely to happen.
10.
Romantic. Romantic people express strong feelings of love in their words and actions.
Unit 6, Anthropology, Biology, The Science of Love, page 55. Try it out.
All right, now one well-known psychologist, Robert Sternberg, has proposed a theory of love in the context of interpersonal relationships. He proposes that there are 3 kinds of interpersonal love. The first is intimacy, which concerns feelings of closeness and connectedness. Most of us feel this type of love with friends and family. The second is passion. As you might expect, this involves feelings of romance and physical attraction toward another person. The third and final type of love is commitment. This means that there's a commitment to maintain the relationship over a long period. Sternberg believes that relationships based on at least 2 of these types will last much longer than relationships based only on one of them.
Unit 6, Anthropology, Biology, The Science of Love, pages 56 and 57. Listen for main ideas and listen for details.
Who here has seen a romantic comedy or read a romance novel or even met a special someone and felt that tug of romantic love? Most of you, but maybe not all. Just how universal is this notion of romantic love? Any ideas? Well, anthropologists have identified romantic love in almost every human culture. For instance, one recent study showed that 147 out of 166 cultures had some form of romantic love. This suggests that romantic love is at least partly biologically based. There's also a social science to romantic love, which is where I'm going to begin today. Anthropologists describe romantic love as a high-intensity social ritual, a ritual being a prescribed form of conducting a formal ceremony. Now, this may seem surprising because we aren't usually aware of following any kinds of rules when we fall in love. But in fact, falling in love does have the 4 major characteristics of a ritual. The first characteristic of a ritual is that it brings people into a face-to-face contact. Clearly, romantic love does this. People who are in love want to spend as much time together as possible. The second characteristic of a ritual is that it focuses people's attention on some common object or activity. With romantic love, the common object is the couple itself. For people in love, other people and activities seem to fade away. Now, the third characteristic of a ritual is that it promotes mutual emotion among the participants. Obviously, romantic love qualifies here. Few other experiences can surpass it in intensity. This is why romantic love is described as a high-intensity ritual. The final characteristic of a ritual is that it produces an emotionally charged symbol that represents membership in some group. Well, what are some of the symbols in romantic love? In Western cultures, love is associated with heart-shaped objects and rings. For instance, a wedding ring symbolises the couple's love and commitment. We all know how important these symbols can be. For instance, losing a ring, for example, can cause a lot of anxiety, so be careful with those symbols. Now let's look at what's happening in your brain and in your body when you feel the emotion that we call romantic love. Recent research indicates that there's a biochemical basis to love. So there's a good reason why people in love feel as if they're in a different and more beautiful world. Their brain is literally flooded by hormones and chemicals that cause them to feel the way they feel. We can break the process of falling in love into 3 fairly distinct phases based on the hormones and chemicals dominant in each phase. In the first phase, the hormones testosterone and estrogen play important roles. Although testosterone has a reputation as a male hormone, it is also present in women, and it has many effects on the brain, one of which is to make us seek partners and to be alert to the presence of possible partners. So, in essence, these hormones get us out looking for and then noticing prospective partners to fall in love with. It's in the second phase where people have the feeling of being in love. Here, some powerful amphetamines are released into the brain. Amphetamines are a kind of stimulant, right? They make us feel alert. Well, 2 of these amphetamines are dopamine and phenylethylamine, also known as PEA. Dopamine has a physical effect on our body. It increases our heart rate and blood pressure and seems to make us more talkative. It also has a powerful psychological effect, invoking feelings of pleasure and excitement, and it enhances our emotional responses to things. The other chemical released in this phase is PEA. PEA is a neurotransmitter, which means it increases the electrical signals between the neurons in the brain. This makes us feel euphoric. It's the chemical that makes us smile a lot when we're first in love and feel like we're in some kind of heavenly world. But because our body develops a tolerance to PEA, the euphoric feelings gradually disappear. And that brings us to the final phase of love, which is concerned with longer-lasting commitment and attachment. The first important compound in this stage is endorphins. Endorphins are natural painkillers that give us a sense of security and feelings of peace and calm. They basically improve our mood. Our brain also secretes hormones that play a role in the formation of social attachments. One such hormone is oxytocin, sometimes called the cuddle chemical. Oxytocin seems to produce the feelings of relaxed satisfaction and attachment to another person. Now, as you might imagine, there is some resistance to the idea of love being determined by brain chemistry and hormones. Do you know where this resistance might come from?
Unit 6, Anthropology, Biology, The Science of Love, Page 58. Talk about the topic. Parts A and B.
Who agrees with the idea that love is a result of a biochemical process?
I do, absolutely. If you've ever been in love, you know that kind of drugged sensation she mentioned. That's the chemicals and hormones at work.
Well, I've had some romantic experiences. I wouldn't say I've ever been drugged by anyone.
Really? Well, what about that first phase she mentioned? The one where you're looking for a partner, seeking a partner? Surely you've experienced that part.
Actually, I don't do much seeking. I'm usually the one being sought.
Well, that makes sense. After all, it takes all kinds to make the love ritual work.
And what about you? Have you experienced the 3 phases of falling in love?
Well, not so much for myself, but I know about the 3rd stage, the commitment stage, from watching my older brother and his wife. They've been married for like 5 years, and they're content. I'd say happy. They're not real passionate, but I'd say happy. That's oxytocin. That's oxytocin working.
Well, personally, I resist the idea that love is completely chemical or hormonal. I mean, we're not animals, right?
I don't think she was saying that.
Well, maybe not, but can we at least agree that we do have some control? I mean, we may have these feelings, but we can consciously control them, right?
Oh,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Unit 6, Anthropology, Biology, the Science of Love. Take the unit test. Listen to each question. Circle the letter of the correct answer. 1.
What are the 2 main points of the lecture?
2.
What is one purpose of a wedding ring?
3.
Why is romantic love described as a high-intensity ritual?
4.
In what order does the speaker talk about the biochemical basis of love?
5.
Which of the following is associated with the first biochemical phase of love?
6.
Which is not a physical effect of dopamine?
7.
Why do euphoric feelings of love gradually disappear?
8.
What is the main effect of endorphins?
9.
Which of the following about love is probably true?
10.
What would the speaker probably think about the idea that love will never be understood by scientists?